Hi there, I'm Allie Elliott, and today we are going to talk about value and pricing. No matter where you're at on your business journey, on your photography journey, you have come to the point where you have to put a value on what you do. You're putting a value on your products, you're putting a value on your time, and this is what you are going to ask of other people. This is what you're going to ask of your consumers and of other people that value you equally. Don't make excuses. I see a lot of new photographers on the boards or in conversation make excuses for why they are priced the way they are, which is generally far too low. They'll say it's because they're still new, it's because they're still learning, it's because of where their competition is based price-wise and where they see themselves on some kind of scale in comparison with their competition. I've seen people say that everybody deserves photos of their family. Of course I believe that's true. I wouldn't be in this industry if I didn't believe that photographs were important for everybody to have. That doesn't mean that you have to run a portrait studio the way you would run a charity. I think a lot of times we have a tendency to use those excuses as a shield for some insecurity as to pricing ourselves higher than we feel like is necessary. But our prices should be a decision, not an emotion. It should be based on hard numbers that you run, how you spend your time, what you're paying yourself, and then you're asking your compensation from your consumers. If the market won't support that, then you can reevaluate. Go ahead and scrap the idea that you're still learning. Everybody is still learning. People who have been in this business 20 years are still learning, or they should be, but whether they intend to or not, I think they are, because the industry is constantly changing, techniques are changing, clientele is changing, what people are looking for is changing. So we're all new in some sense, we're all learning, and that shouldn't stop based on where you are in your career. So go ahead and scrap that one off your list of excuses. I remember when I was first starting out and I felt like I was researching. I was basing my prices on what other photographers in the area were charging, and I was undercutting them because I was new and I was unknown, and I felt like that's the thing I had to do to get clients. And that is a natural response, but I don't think it's the right one. And if I could go back and tell my old self the journey that I would take, I would realize that I was leaving a lot of money on the table. I could breathe a lot easier when I recognized that my value, my pricing was not dependent on other people in my market or in my region, but it was dependent on me, my work, and the value that I was creating myself, no matter how many or how few other photographers are in my region. I get a lot of work not from my region. I get a lot of clients that I wouldn't necessarily see on paper as a possibility for me because of the way that I valued my work and my time and my studio. When you're pricing yourself for the first time or repricing, regardless, when you are pricing yourself, don't just consider where you are now, but consider where you want to be. Consider a year from now, 5 years from now. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see your business? Are you putting yourself on track to reach those goals? Or are you going to leave it a pipe dream? Are you going to leave it something that you hope for, but you don't work for? Put it in place. Put it on the calendar. Make it happen. I set my first prices. One thing I did right is that I set my prices in a way at the beginning of my studio so that I could discount and work my way up to full prices. So I priced myself where I wanted to be, and then I discounted for a little while. And this was 13 years ago, and I have changed my value, and I have changed my business strategy, and I've changed that along with the reputation that I've built, and I no longer discount, and I no longer encourage discounting. But if that's the difference between you pricing yourself at a livable wage and you pricing yourself far below that, then do it. If that's what makes you more comfortable, then do it. And baby step into those big numbers. At some point in my pricing education over the last 13 years, I got some advice from another photographer that said, when you're considering raising your prices, start marking the difference. That this sale would have been $2,000 at my new pricing, and at my current pricing, it was $1,200. So start keeping a tally of what you're leaving on the table. That'll give you the encouragement that you need to take that leap into pricing yourself at an appropriate level. It's a pain to change your prices. I get that. I just went through that myself. It's an uncomfortable conversation with clients that you have felt connected to, and you have to recognize that you might be leaving those people at a different part in your career and moving on to a different demographic of clients. That's hard to let go of when you're used to your prices, when you're at a place where you know your price list so well that helps you sell. And that's where I've been recently. I knew my prices inside out, so I could help encourage stackable sales because I knew what would fit into their budget based on the information I had in my head that was in my pricing. That makes it very easy and very natural way to sell, which is what I'm most comfortable with. To leave that behind is kind of scary. I've only raised my prices twice in 13 years. I know. I know. I made it that way so I wouldn't have to do it very often, because it's no fun to have that conversation with clients that you love and you care about and you want to continue taking their pictures. And realistically, you know you're not going to hold on to all of them. That's just part of the game. Most importantly, don't forget your why. Don't forget why you're doing this. Is it because you love art and you want to create art? Is it because you're supporting your family? If you're doing it to support your family, to support your kids, you're valuing their time too, your time away from them. That time is so limited. I have 6 children. They're still relatively young. And my time with them is precious. They have grown up so completely fast, and everybody says that. And then when you're in it, you're like, what? Wait a second. They're grown now. And before we know it, we are raising teenagers, which is where I'm starting to be at, which is bananas. But that time is valuable. I'm doing this to better our lives. I'm doing this to better their lives and to support our family. And I value that greatly. I'm doing this to create art because I love this. Family photos are incredibly important to me. Each minute that I spend with their family creating these things that generations down the road are going to be looking at is a really big deal to me. And that is not a line at all. I completely believe in the power of family photography, in that connection to people you maybe never even met. Maybe you weren't born when they were alive, but you have this connection through photography. That's huge. And I appreciate that. And I value that. And I want to bring in people that also value that so that they understand my gratitude. If I have to price myself at a way that discourages people who are doing this as just kind of what you do or not that big of a deal, I'm okay with that. I'm okay to stick to people that value. I have people that save, that take second jobs. You do too. You're going to have people that save and take second jobs and value what you do. Those are the people you want. And if they value it, they're going to find a way to pay for it, no matter what you're asking. I remember at my very first student show, I was a fine arts major in college. I had a student show coming up, and we had to price our work. And it's a weird, awkward thing to have to put a price on something you created because you love it. And I didn't really want to sell any of it, But at the same token, I was an art kid. I was an art student. I was broke, and the money would have been really nice. And I was sitting there struggling with how to price this because I wanted to price it high enough that I was okay letting go of it. It's a one-of-a-kind thing that I'm saying goodbye to, something I created, and it's going to go away. So it needed to be a price that I was okay to let it go with, something I was excited enough that the sadness wouldn't be that big of a deal. And then when I thought about what that number would be, it felt really weird for a student in art school to be putting that price on a piece of art. One of my professors saw me kind of like having a mental struggle, I think, and he came over and he said to me something I will never forget and I draw on constantly. Nobody will ever pay you more than you tell them you're worth. Let that sink in. It's true on every level. Still, 20 years later, I draw on that advice every time I'm walking into an ordering session, every time I have to raise my prices, every time I make a sale. That is important to me. Nobody will ever pay you more than you tell them you're worth. And that means you're telling your kids, this is what my time away from you is worth. This is what my time in front of the computer editing is worth. This is what the time away to support our family is worth. So shed all those insecurities about where you're at in your art journey and make it about what you're doing for those people that are in front of you right now. It's a big deal. Make it a big deal for you, make it a big deal for them, and make it a big enough price that it's worth being away from your family. Appreciate your talent. Other people will appreciate your talent. Find them. They're out there. Go get them. Thanks, guys.